What's up, guys? Welcome to G Whiskey. I'm Jeff. This is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey, and every once in a while throw in other whiskey-related content. Now, it's the time of year where a lot of us YouTubers start doing our wrap-up lists and our end-of-year lists and best of stuff. And before I jump into that in December, I thought it would be fun to put a question out to my supporters and ask them what they thought the best whiskey of 2023 is. And I've got the results in. I want to share them with you guys today, so this should be a fun one. Stick around. All right, so yeah, this is just kind of like leading into that big time of year where I do all my fancy videos, all my, whiskey of the year, runners up to whiskey of the year, non-budget whiskey of the year. What else do I have? Limited edition whiskey of the year. Like, December's going to be a big month for me. I'm going full clickbait. But yeah, before we get into all that, I thought it'd be really cool to put out a video that's like from the perspective of my supporters. So I reached out to my patrons and I asked them what they thought. And so I asked them a very simple question. I said, what was your favorite whiskey of 2023? I got quite a few really interesting results in, and through some very informal voting and polling, we whittled it down to a top 5 list. Now, I don't have a lot of patrons, but I do have a few, and of course, a big thank you to each and every one of you. But yeah, despite the small sample size, I still thought this would be a really great question to put out to them. And listen, despite their very questionable taste in YouTube content, these are all people who know whiskey and who love whiskey. Now, one thing to note before we dive in is I said this was a top 5 list. It kind of is, but it also kind of isn't. I've actually got 9 whiskeys on this list. So it's closer to a top 10, but the reason that we've got so many whiskeys here is that there were 3 slots in here that were tied, and I thought it wouldn't be fair to pluck any whiskeys out. So that just means that our top 5 whiskeys are actually 9 whiskeys, because fucking why not? But just in order to make it a little bit more fun, I did decide that if a category was tied, I'll share with you what option I would choose for myself if it was me buying these whiskeys. So we're just kind of making up criteria on the fly here, but it's my channel. Do what I want. Also, as usual, guys, I do have a mystery pour in the glass here, so make sure you stick around till after the list and I'll share with you what that is. This is not a whiskey that's on the list. It's not related to anything on the list, but I just kind of felt like talking about it, and who's going to stop me? So yeah. That's the premise, nothing to add really, so let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into our list and find out what these smart, kind, intelligent, interesting, and genuinely attractive people think is the best whiskey of 2023. In the meantime, if you'll kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. Okay, so at the bottom of the list at number 5, we've got 2 whiskeys. So this one is a tied category. One of them is Irish, the other is a Scotch. The Irish one is going to be the Powers 12 John's Lane, and our Scotch choice is going to be the Ardnamurchan Cask Strength. The Powers 12 gives us a really nice Irishy profile. It is quite sherried, nothing over the top, but a really nice, rich, full cask influence there. This is from the Middleton Distillery, which is also famous for stuff like the Spot whiskeys and the Redbreast whiskeys. Meanwhile, our Ardnamurchan Cask Strength is from the Ardnamurchan Distillery, and it's cask strength. Now, if you were to ask me which one I prefer, I really like them both, but if I have to choose one, it's going to be the Ardnamurchan, even if you factor in value, because typically, outside of my market anyway, the Ardnamurchan would be more expensive. But even with that being the case, I love that Ardnamurchan. I think it's a wonderful whiskey, but to be fair, that is setting the bar super high. The Powers is also excellent whiskey, and I totally get why both made it onto this list. Next up at number 4, we've got a 3-way tie. Our first one is the Oban 10 Special Release from 2022. Our second is Ben Nevis 10, and our third is the Kilchoman Loch Gorm. The Oban release is, of course, a 10-year-old. It's from last year's, from the 2022 Special Releases lineup from Diageo. It's cask strength. I've reviewed it. I absolutely loved it. The Ben Nevis 10 is one I have not reviewed yet. I really need to get around to that, but it's a wonderfully dirty and rugged whiskey. One thing to be aware with that one, though, is that it can be very batchy. Finally, the Kilchoman Loch Gorm. This one is an annual release. It being from Kilchoman, it is going to be heavily peated, but it's also very heavily sherried, and it's kind of like a sweet, thick, syrupy kind of sherry. So if you like the sweet and the peat, this is a great option too. I think if I'm ranking these, it would depend on which batch of Ben Nevis 10 I'm working with, but I think normally Ben Nevis 10 would sit at number 3, Loch Gorm at number 2, and then that Oban would be comfortably placed at number 1. I much prefer to those other two, but that was a big one for me. I'm a sucker for Oban. But yeah, if I had a better batch from the Ben Nevis 10s, that might actually bump up to the number 2 slot and leave Loch Gorm at number 3. But again, these are all really good options, guys. So clearly my patrons have impeccable taste, and as I said, are also very attractive. All right, so for number 3, we've got our last tie. Here we've got two very interesting choices. We've got the Bunnahabhain 18 and we've got the Glenturret 12. Both of them are quite sherried, quite forward with their sherry, but beyond that, in terms of profile, quite different. The Glenturret 12 goes a lot funkier and a lot dirtier. That's more going to be for like the Edward Hour crowds or the Leadjig crowds. Meanwhile, if you're looking at the Bunna, it's much more refined, it's much more sophisticated. We have some beautiful earthy and woody notes in there. It can be batchy, and some of the lesser batches have disappointed, but at its best, Bunna 18 is, in my opinion, one of the best 18-year-olds out there. And because of that, despite the higher price tag, if it's up to me, I'm going to go with the Bunna 18 myself. I just really connect with that whiskey. Again, batchy, but it's good. It's really good. Meanwhile, the Glenturret 12, I definitely do like it, but that dirty, funky, sherried profile is something that, for me, takes a certain mood. Meanwhile, anyone, anytime, anywhere could offer me a dram of Bunnahabhain 18 and I would suddenly feel very thirsty. Regardless, they're both cool choices, and if you ever have the two side by side, you'll see that there is quite a range in flavor and profile that you can get even within the realm of like just sherried whiskey. So once again, cool choices. Okay, so we reached number 2, and luckily we don't have any more ties on this list. So what my supporters put at number 2 is one that I definitely wasn't expecting to see at all on this list. They opted for the Kilkerran 16, which I thought was a bold choice. This is kind of a controversial whiskey. It tends to elicit pretty strong reactions from people. People either love it or hate it. Regardless of whether you love it or hate it, it's an expensive whiskey. And I think there's a good chunk of people out there who paid for it and felt a little bit underwhelmed. Now, I've not had a bottle of this myself, but I have tried it about 3 times now, and I'm very much in the camp of, I love this whiskey. I think this is a great whiskey, and I also think it's a solid step up from the 12, which I also love. But also, I haven't bought it yet. I want a bottle, but that price tag is something else, especially here in Taiwan. I think here it's even a little bit more expensive than it is in other markets, and it's not a cheap whiskey in other markets. So yes, it is an expensive choice, but it is a damn good whiskey, and it comes in at number 2. All right, so the top spot. What did my supporters vote as their number 1 whiskey of the year? I want to do this big dramatic drum roll and surprise you guys, but this is probably the most predictable whiskey on this list. These guys chose the Port Charlotte 10, and I can't disagree with that. That's a damn good whiskey. This is one of those, yes, it's popular, but it's popular for good reason situations. Aaron 10, another good example. This is a great whiskey. It's one of the more affordable offerings from Port Charlotte. And I wouldn't say it's cheap. And it's not cheap for a 10-year-old, and it's not cheap for a 10-year-old from Islay. But you do get what you pay for. And if you want a smoky, complex, interesting, and characterful whiskey, this one's got you covered. We have Big Peat here, we have an interesting wine cask influence, and we have that wonderful Port Charlotte distillate. I really can't fault my patrons for choosing this one in the top spot. If you like peat and you've not tried this one yet, give it a go. You're missing out. Okay, that's it. That's the list, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And of course, I do want to hear from you. I've got a couple questions for you. Number 1, what's your whiskey of the year? I'm very curious what whiskeys really impressed you guys in 2023. And question number 2 is really just for fun, but I want to hear what you guys think might be my whiskey of the year. If any of you out there want to hazard as a guess as to what I'm going to choose. It's something I don't think a lot of people will expect. It's something I did review this year and I liked it. I've grown to love it even more since that review. Beautiful whiskey, and yeah, what do you think it might be? Finally, for those of you who stuck around to find out what the mystery port in my glass is, I've got something sweet and sherried and Christmassy and seasonal here. What I'm drinking is the Ardnamurchan Sherry release. This one came out this year to a lot of hype, a lot of fanfare. A lot of people really love this stuff. Now, I can't match everyone's enthusiasm on it. I don't think it's the best thing ever, but it is a really good whiskey. Personally, I prefer a gentler sherry touch in my Ardnamurchans, but I can't deny this is an excellent whiskey, and I still want to recommend it. And I guess that is it for our video today, guys. So thank you very much for watching. If you want to help out with the channel, I do have the Patreon. Otherwise, you can like, comment, subscribe. That's always appreciated. And of course, I want to hear from you. Have you tried our Ardnamurchan release? Have you tried anything from the list? Again, what's your whiskey of the year? What do you think my whiskey of the year is? Anything you want to say, put it down below. And I suppose we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.